the publication doing things different. We are an in-depth story-sharing magazine with the truth of the matter at the heart of everything, always in all ways. A no-holds-barred, fully experiential space where you can read, watch and listen to some of the most authentic humans sharing their stories, dropping wisdom and cultivating a community you always want to be part of. Are you ready to go all in?
Welcome back to another edition of All In Magazine. I'm Rich Bontrager, and that is, who are you?
Hi, I am Sandra D. Robinson. I'm so happy to be here today. This is going to be such a great show. I'm really excited.
We're going to have somebody on that we both know very well, and they love to travel, Sandra. Now, spring is coming, summer is coming. Do you have a favorite spot that you've never gone to before and traveled, but you want to?
Oh my gosh. You put me on the spot there. Yeah, I kind of feel like sometimes there are places like Alaska. I have not been to Alaska.
I have.
And I really, but I don't want to go on one of the fancy cruises. Like I want to get like out there. This is so weird. I want to get out there, kind of like our guest, to get into like the heart of everything and see the natural world without any disturbance. So like to go sit with biologists and watch the polar bears from like a secret place. Like that's actually what I want to do, right? So our guest today will certainly, kind of echo that, I think, with all of his experiences.
Well, I had 6 weeks in Alaska in a motor home, off road. That was cool. Actually, I want to go back to Mexico. I did it when I was younger. I did the pyramids. It is
Oh, I haven't seen
so
that
cool.
either.
It
Yeah.
is so cool to climb these pyramids and look at the ancient technology and how did they study the stars and the sun and get the seasons right. It's fascinating. So yeah, I could geek on that all day.
Yeah, I getcha.
All right, but enough about us. We're going to get into our guest today. Sean Brosnan is a New Zealand-born photographer, now based in Ireland with a passion for deep diving into oceans, stories, and the heart of great images. From intelligent times lapse to bold commercial visuals, he helps brands capture their world with clarity, creativity, and that special eye that only he can really grab with. So
True.
right now, the guy behind the camera is going to come on camera. Welcome, Sean, to All In Magazine.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. It's great to see you both. And I'd
Now,
happily continue that conversation about traveling.
what is your favorite place to go? Where would be your ultimate place? Because you've gotten around.
Well, I have gotten around, but Sandra D, that photo on my wall of two polar bears kissing was taken in Canada in 2008. And I've also been to Egypt many times, where I visited visited Cairo and the pyramids and all of those places throughout Egypt. I haven't been to Alaska though, but my favorite, above all, certainly when it comes to diving, is the Maldives, and I'm planning at the moment a new trip to go diving with the tiger sharks.
Do you have any fear over these things? Like I know you've been in some dangerous places. Do you have any fear when it comes up to diving with these sharks? Why? Why not? It's a natural instinct for a human being to go, hey, something inside me says this will eat me. So why not?
I guess I would liken it to the first time you saw a dog and a dog came up to you. Was there an element of fear? It's an animal, it could bite me. What might happen? And then you realize that the dog just wants a cuddle and wants to be your friend. Okay, maybe sharks don't want to cuddle. They might not necessarily be looking to be your best friend, but ultimately it's very similar. They have about as much interest in eating you as you do eating dog food. They're
I don't.
very curious animals. They like to come in. They wanted to see what all the noise, the activity is about, what's the bubbles, what's happening, what are
Right.
you up to. And like any animal, they give you signals. If they're not happy or they're not comfortable with you being in or around them or in their space, they'll soon tell you and you move away from them.
Yeah, that's when I walk on water to get back to the boat.
The first time I saw a shark was a very different story, though, and I wandered out of that water very quickly. But I have realized over 27 years of diving with many sharks, big sharks, lots of numbers, hundreds and hundreds of sharks all around me, they've no interest in biting.
All right. So, Sean, you just had me an image of you hugging a shark. So, What makes you tick with that in mind?
Sean Brosnan, Shark Hugger, new
Yeah,
tagline for you.
there's a new strap line, isn't there? What makes me tick? I think people and adventure. I have always been a very curious soul. I love traveling. I love talking to people. I love learning from people, their experiences. I love the cultures that we learn about traveling, experiences like diving, like skiing, or other things that we do in life. So, for me, it's really all centered around people, activities, and experiences.
I love that. Now, time lapse photography. I
Yes.
love watching that. I have no idea how it's done. I understand you can put a timer on your camera and do all that, but explain to us your attraction to time lapse photography.
So I suppose come on a journey back to when I was a small child, and like a lot of us, you would remember those flip books
Flip
that we used
books.
to have, and you'd flick through the pages, and you would see an image that would evolve as you flicked through the pages, and they were drawn either pencil or ink, whatever. So in my mind, that was an early version of time lapse. But in a lot of the ways over the years, I've had this imagination about where time lapse could go, but the technology wasn't there to be able to match that. So time lapse has been around forever. Essentially, a camera captures lots and lots of images. We're talking thousands, even tens of thousands of images, compresses those together in a short form video of still images that shows us or tells us a story as it's evolving. So classic usages would be time lapse. Sorry, would be construction. Sometimes you would see the very original time lapse was actually of still images showing horse movement, and it was kind of almost the very
Yes.
early stages of video concept, I guess. The difference now is so sorry. The challenge along the way has always been to take even professional grade cameras, you had to find a box that would stay secure and dry. You had to find a way to keep battery power into the camera, change SIM cards in the camera so that you could, or memory cards so that you could get images out. So it was very, very labor intensive. And then more importantly, the cameras would struggle with that fluctuating light. It can be done, but it was very, very labor intensive. So now these new cameras that I have access to actually are a single box with two lenses. It has a 220-degree field of view, so it can see behind itself. Solar panel, so it powers itself. A SIM card and a memory card, so it uploads the images to a portal, and that's where all the magic then happens. So the camera does all the hard, heavy lifting of taking the photographs. The portal then analyzes those images and gives us back data for construction sites and for other use cases like activity and productivity and safety data and all sorts of really interesting information. So the kind of the technology of time lapse has finally caught up to my child with those flip books. So
Oh, for a second, we thought we lost you there. Oh, good.
Wait, the
Well,
cameraman broke the camera.
I know, right? Well, what's amazing to me is I have seen what you've been able to do. I've seen demonstrations that you've given or shown us on what this can mean for construction and building of all different types. The industrial use of time lapse is phenomenal, and that is great as far as a business outlet for you. That's fantastic. Have you or do you intend to use this in the natural world in any way, that time lapse photography? Because we see that now. There's a show out now called Nature. There's been several on the BBC that are just phenomenal. And I sit back and go, how many months did it take for them to do this time lapse through the seasons and things? Have you ever done? Would you like to do something like that?
I would love to do something like that. Yes, I haven't come across that opportunity yet, but I am looking for it. I
Put it
know
out
that
there. Put it out there right now.
let's put it out into the ether. I know that these cameras are being used on glaciers all over the world to track the ice movement.
Right.
And I think there's a million and one different use cases for them, especially in the natural world where we have animals, we have growth. We can see the seasons of growth. We can even analyze what's happening with the growth potentially. So I think there's enormous opportunities. It's just about opening the right doors and the right conversations, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, so let's, what I said, let's put it out there. Put it out there for Sean and see what we
Well,
can
the end of
get him involved
CBS
in.
Sunday Mornings with Jane Pauley, the very end of CBS Sunday Mornings has a segment where they roll a nature clip with the photographers. no talk over, no music.
Yeah.
They just roll it out, and it's got the birds, the tweaking, the alligators making it. It's beautiful to just watch that stuff. What's the best clip you've ever gotten, Sean? What's the most unique nature clip like that you've gotten?
I think certainly my favorite is that polar bear image that's on the wall behind me. You think about the environment; it was minus 30 degrees. We were wearing huge clothing to stay warm. We flew up to Churchill in Canada, and then in a little six-seater aircraft, we flew up to the side of the Hudson Bay to a little place called Seal River. And all that's there was what was a fishing lodge that's been extended gradually over the years. So there's nothing out there. There's no TV, there's no Wi-Fi, there's no shops or roads or anything like that. It's just polar bears waiting for the ice to freeze at the beginning of the winter, and then coming out of hibernation, or going into hibernation, sorry, over the summer. So they're milling around, and the opportunity then to capture that image where the two of them are play fighting and rolling around and tussling, and then as their mouths touch, that split second. And for me, I think that's what the beauty of photography is all about, is that you can actually freeze frame a moment in time that will last forever and tell stories, very different stories to different people.
Now, you mentioned Alaska, traveling, your love of water. What is your thoughts on the state of our oceans? There's a lot of climate control and different people talking about this stuff, but what's Sean's viewpoint on all this?
Yeah, look, I think it's really sad in a lot of ways. Look, I'm not an expert in climate change or anything like that. All I can do is give my view on what I see firsthand. I've been diving for 27 years in various parts of the world. Egypt and the Maldives, I've been to more than a dozen times each over that 27-year period. And I've seen massive change, destruction, really. I see our reefs dying, effectively graveyards now instead of flourishing reefs full of ocean species. Commercial fishing is definitely having an impact, along with many other things. You can't put it onto just one industry or one sector, but there's over 1.6 million per year species like turtles, seabirds, dolphins, and so forth that are being killed from commercial fishing nets that are dragging through our ocean. Some of them are snagging and breaking, and then they call them ghost nets. So they're dropping onto the reef, and the light and the nutrients can't all get through, and the reef and everything around it dies. So, but it comes right back, I think, to even simple things that we do, how we travel, what we take with us, the plastics that we use, obviously the cars we drive, and all those different things. So, I think it's a really complex area, but I can tell you firsthand, reefs that I've dived on for many years are dying. Sea temperatures are rising. I was in Egypt last year, last August, and the average temperature was between 32 and 34 degrees water temperature, not air temperature. And once it goes over that 30-degree mark, it starts effectively to kill the reefs.
That's
So
almost like bath water, isn't it?
it is 36 degrees. I think 32, 34, I think, is bath temperature, something like that. The highest recorded while I was there was 36 degrees. Do you know, and Egypt isn't alone. It's many, many countries is having the same problem. So I guess the challenge for us really is about, well, what do we do about that, and how do we not wait for everybody else? And I often talk about change, and I have a background in management and ops and change management. And the reality is that we as people don't like change. We want change, but we don't want to change. And that can be anything from, you get up tomorrow and your favorite pen breaks, right? A pen. I mean, some people would say, come on, really? It's a pen. To somebody else, with all the things that are happening in their lives, that could be a major change, having to relearn to write with a new pen. Somebody else, it could be losing their job. To somebody else, it's about climate change. But the reality of change is we don't like it until we understand it, and so forth. I think the challenge we have here is that I think generally most people want to see us improve, climate change and the way that we use plastics and that kind of thing, so that future generations can enjoy our oceans and parks and everything else. but it's how do we actually make those small changes along the way? I think that's the biggest challenge for us, and not waiting for, yes, I want change, but actually I want my neighbor to change first. I don't want change. So come back and talk to me in a few years. It's sort of that almost hidden attitude, I think, that we've got to try to tackle somehow.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back and talk more with Sean and Sandra D. Robinson in just a moment on All In Magazine. Stick around. There we go. We're back. All right. I do want to say Ireland's still on my list to come and hang out. I think I have to come to Ireland. Sandra, have you ever been to Ireland?
I've been to Scotland. I know it's not the same, but it's close. It's as close as I got, and I have been to New Zealand, so I've got that down. I have, yes, yeah. I was there to speak and work for only a matter of days. I didn't get to see very much, which is always so sad, because you have your experiences through your photography seem to take us into a really deep, I don't know, it sounds weird to say that a photograph can give a kinesthetic response, but it kind of feels like that. Like my whole body just kind of envisions myself being in the water with you, with your photos and things, which I think, tying on to what we were just talking about, what can we do with climate change and bringing awareness? Definitely, I think your photographs do that. And I'd love to see you do something in a gallery under a theme like that. And maybe you've already done so, but I think that'd be beautiful.
Yeah, I agree. And that's, I suppose, what's set me on this path, if you want to say that, over the last few years of trying to actually now share that imagery. I mean, I've been capturing photos underwater, diving 27 years, capturing photos underwater badly, probably for about 15 years, until we figured out how to actually get it right. But I've been capturing photos underwater for a long time, but I never really shared them. So I've actually only over the last probably nearly 2 years actually started to really pull them out and share them. I would have shown family and friends, but now I'm kind of pushing them out there and writing about it each month and just trying to create a little bit more awareness. But I see it in people when they see it, that magical beauty that I experience in real life going into the water. When people see the images, because it is truly another world, and the different species and fish and sharks and everything else that's down there, when people see it, they're amazed, and hopefully some of them will be encouraged maybe one day to try it and actually go and see for themselves.
Yes, or at least take care of the planet in any small way. Every little thing counts, is what I always tell people. When I say, no, I don't want a straw, and they give me a look, I'm like, and Alan rolls his eyes, my husband rolls his eyes, here we go. They say, why don't you want a straw? I'm like, okay. But I think every little thing, that you can do actually does add up. And so it looks intimidating, but to see the beauty that you share, I'm so happy that you're doing that, because it'll inspire people.
Well, yeah, again, when I never did, but think back to when people smoked. And it was just normal that people smoked in restaurants and pubs and bars and everything, and even theaters and on planes. I mean, you're stuck in a tin can 30,000 feet up in the air, and the person beside you is smoking, and you're going, what? So look at the change that we can bring if we really start to get behind it, small changes. It needs everybody, though, to make some of those small changes, and maybe realize that actually our oceans are gold. And if we treated them like that, and we thought about our oceans like they were gold, well, we would treat everything to do with them very differently. One of the really sad and interesting things actually is that the fish are eating the plastics that are in the water, because the plastics don't break down in water. So actually the flesh of the fish is now containing plastic.
And then we
eat that fish. We are eating plastic that is caught in the flesh of the fish, so we've got to do something.
Well, you talk a lot about change, as we've been listening to, and part of our conversation is getting into that. People watching probably think, this guy's a pretty deep thinker. Sean's a smart cookie, man. So are you alive, Sean? Consciously aware and active and having fun? What does that mean to be alive for you?
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. That I was at a talk a few years ago. Jack Kavanagh, lovely young lad who had a tragic accident when he was very young, But he was the key motivational speaker. And one of the things he said, are you consciously aware that you're alive? And it actually really struck me, because I think that in this day and age now, and geez, I feel like I'm getting old sometimes when I say this, but we're so busy, we're so switched on between mobile phones and social media and work and everything else, family and friends. Life is complicated. But are you actually aware that you're alive and living your life? Or are you just in that sort of almost zombie state, for want of a better word, where we're just going through the motions? How often do we stop and say, geez, where did that 10 years go, or that 20 years go?
Or where'd that week go?
That week, exactly. It all adds up, the day and the week and so forth. And so unless you're actually consciously alive and saying, well, how am I making a difference in this world? How am I making a difference on the people that are around me, family and friends, colleagues, whatever it might be? How am I actually living the adventure? Am I getting out there and actually, seeing what the world has to offer, learning from new cultures and meeting new people? And I think Linda Ellis puts it really well in her poem, The Dash. What if today was your last day? Would you be happy with what people said about the way that you lived your life and what you did with it? So, and that's not to try to be too deep and all the rest of it, but it really struck me when he said it that day. Are you consciously aware that you're alive?
It's such a beautiful thing. It really is. Yeah.
It really is. But it does make you think. It makes your head hurt sometimes to realize Friday to Friday goes by. I mean, Sandra and I talk all the time, and sometimes it's like, is it Friday? Is it really Friday already? It's like it's blink and it's gone. And I think we are walking zombies, Sean. I think a lot of times we look in the rearview mirror and go, "Oh, I missed something." Do you agree we're missing a lot by just doing life?
And look, I think that, COVID had a massive impact in so many ways. And I think it has made us change the way that we want to live our lives and this work-life balance that we talk about. But I still wonder, we're just using that as a jargon, or do we really understand what balance means? I know I certainly don't get it right, but trying. But, I said to people coming up to the end of 2024 into 2025, I hope you're ready to board the 2025 bullet train, because once it departs that station, if you're not on it, you're going to be hanging on to the back of it, wishing you were on it. And that's what it feels like sometimes, that actually January 1st and boom, it used to be January was so slow. It took forever for January to go by.
Oh, no.
And boom, boom, boom. No.
Definitely not. I feel like January hit and it was just a firestorm of things to do and attend and conferences and all kinds of things coming at you all at once. Now you talked about work-life balance and all this, but you have something that not many people in general on the planet are able to say. You do something on a regular basis and get paid for it and you love it. Right? You are actually employed in something that gets you excited about getting up in the morning and allows you to have that sense of being alive. Absolutely. So I realize that not everybody watching this has the opportunity to do this. Some people just say, hey, look, I have a job. Maybe they can invest with a job and create the life that they want and live their hobby as something that allows them to get excited about getting up in the morning. But did you always see this for yourself? Did you always see that did you always follow your passions?
That's a good question. Did I always follow my passions? I'd probably say no and yes. So I always knew that I would work for myself in some form or have a business. I probably always dreamed that I would set up and run my own business, something bigger than just me. But I never really imagined, I suppose, that it would be something that I was so passionate about, if that makes sense. So I wear many hats. And I think in today's world, it's a lot more acceptable. If you go back 30 or 40 years, maybe, you were almost told, go and get a job in the bank. You'll get 30 years in the bank. You'll get a good pension. You'll be set up for life.
And you'll
get a watch. Exactly. You'll get a watch and thank you and all that kind of stuff. I was never that person. I've always been a square peg in a round hole. I've always been the one that would ask why. Why does this work that way? Why do we do it this way? All of that kind of stuff. So we can get into that conversation another time. But I've always been that curious. So I always knew I would do something, and only I think as the years went by did I realize actually how passionate I was about photography and capturing images and so forth. But I also love working with people and change and businesses and making them more profitable and how to make them more efficient and how to get the best out of people and get them humming in a I suppose more fulfilling way. Now I have the joy of being able to combine those two passions into one that's through photography and project and certainly through the time lapse and so forth now that I can really combine all of those different skills. But I also do lots of other things as well, just to keep me busy and interested. But yeah, being able to get up every day and know that photography is where I'm earning my living and capture images that, I can share with people forever is just amazing, really. So sort of
So
pinch it.
the name of the magazine is All In Magazine. You know Kira, the producer, publisher of this, very well.
Yep.
Has she ever asked you, what does all in mean to you, Sean?
I think probably not as a direct question, but I think through our discussions, absolutely, when she was setting up the idea of the magazine and how she would shape it and put it together, we would have had a lot of banter and conversation back and forth, I suppose, about the state of the world, where we're at, politics, people, attitudes, younger generations, older generations, all of those debates. So through that, I think we probably both realized that we want something better for this world. And I think, in Kira's case, it's amazing what she's done with this magazine, bringing in a group of writers that are passionate about writing about truth and actually getting deep under the story and really trying to pull the story out and share that with people. So it's fantastic, really.
So what does all in mean to you personally? Just the idea of being all in.
Look, I think it's feet first, and you've got to go. You've got to go all the way. I am a Kiwi. I do love rugby for my sins. I think as a Kiwi, it's almost a birthright that you grow up following rugby, and why not? I mean, they're amazing to watch, beautiful almost at times, and they're very very passionate. They're very driven. We also have the Maori culture in New Zealand, and the
Yes.
combination of the two of them and some of the Maori ways and that All Black culture, like, excuse the French, but no dickheads allowed in the All Blacks. All of that sort of stuff has driven me in many ways to be all in everything that I do. So very passionate, and if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it at 150%, or I'm not going to do it. I'll go and take the energy somewhere else. So all in to me means 150%, get stuck in, bring people with you, and give it your absolute best.
Would that be
So
your advice for somebody that wants to pursue a life of art, photography, for instance? Would that be your suggestion? Is to
Absolutely.
go all in?
Absolutely. And I think, look, you have to everyone has to make their own decisions. Everyone has to make a living. But you at some point you have to make a decision whether you want to be on that chain, I guess, of employment, and there is some safety and security that goes with that. You get a monthly paycheck every month, no matter what happens, to a degree. Okay, things change, but if you want that life, that's fine. But for me, long term, I was never going to, I think, conform to that box. I needed to be able to think outside of that box. So, I would always encourage someone, go and follow your dreams as long as you've bought into and understand the reality of what it is that you're trying to achieve. It's very tough out there in some areas to actually make a living out of that, and you can't have the same expectations. But ultimately, if you don't follow your dreams, again, you go back to the dash, will you be left in years to come wondering, did you give the best version of yourself, to the world, to your family, to your friends?
You're an
Sean,
inspiration to all nonconformists out there. So thank you.
or
Absolutely.
maybe people that can't play well with others and have to work by themselves. Sean, here's your website. Tell us what they're going to find when they scan the QR code.
So on my website, I've got two websites, so I'm just wondering which one that actually is. But
Photography. This is your photography. We're
that's the
bragging on your
photography.
stuff here.
So Yeah, so there's brosnanphotography.com. So that's where I do my corporate and my commercial photography. And that's then linked to my Motion Insights, which is the time lapse photography. So you'll find a mixture of commercial, corporate photography, who I am, why I do what I do, and so forth.
Sean, amazing. Sandra, you get the final question of the day. I'll let you ask your dear friend whatever you want.
Whatever I want. Good
Hold on
heavens.
to the table.
No pressure,
Okay.
Sean. No pressure.
Who would you find? I'm going to do the same thing. The big question, right? Who would be the most inspirational person in your life, Sean? Alive or dead? Or let's just say one. It's hard when you say the most. Just give us one.
It's a really interesting question, and it's something that I've never really stopped to think about, if I can say it that way. So I've always been very curious. I've said that, and I've always pushed the boundary. And so, therefore, even learning photography, everything that I've done, I go and find experts and I learn a really important piece from them. And then I go to somebody else and learn a really important piece from them, and so forth. So I'm not sure that there's one person that I could say that person has inspired my life or the way that I've lived it. It's lots of different people. But there is no doubt that when Richie McCaw was the captain of the All Blacks, I mean, he to me was absolutely inspiring in the way that he could take a match, even when they were behind, 2013, and people in Ireland are going to hate me for saying this. Thankfully, they've beaten us since then, so I might get away with it. But 2013, 1 or 2 minutes to go. New Zealand were down. Ireland should have won that match all day long. Richie McCaw pulled the team in, said, "This is how we're going to do it." They took the ball from one end of the field all the way up to the other end of the field, scored the try, and won the match. And to me, it was that steeliness that he had, but his ability to bring people together and around him. And that just reminds me, just to finish, I suppose, that on that whole Maori culture, there's an absolutely wonderful proverb that I love, and it's he tangata, he tangata, he tangata. And it stands for, it means it's the people, it's the people, it's the people. And for the Maori, they believe everything starts and ends and revolves around people, attitudes, behaviors, cultures. And that's a really big part, I think, of what's probably inspired me more than one person, if that makes sense.
I love it. And I also like to liken, as we're about to sign off, the way you said that Richie brought everybody together, unified everyone for that common goal, which was to win, even though they were looking like they were up against something that was just impenetrable, much like our climate change and the loss of our species, isn't it?
Absolutely. And you know, it's funny, sorry, just to finish then, to finish, you said it before about I love being behind the camera. I think I've always been a natural leader, but I like to be behind the people, helping mold them in the right direction rather than out the front saying, "Follow me, I'm the leader," if that makes sense, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just really important. And maybe that's why, you know, part of photography, being behind the camera, creating images and all that so forth, it's really what drives me, you know?
Well, I think that is where you're leading, don't you think, Rich? That's how you lead, you inspire through your images and through your passion that comes from your work. So thank you.
Pictures say 1,000 words. Sean Brosnan, thanks for being with us today on All In Magazine. So, Sandra, you know Sean. You know him better than I do. But what is perhaps the biggest surprise or learning moment for you that you got here today?
Yeah, I admit I've met Sean. We are in an international networking group together. So I've had the pleasure, and as soon as I saw him in the little box on a Zoom call, he had an image behind him, and I immediately went into the chat going, "Okay, what is that behind you?" Yeah, I didn't know him. I just saw this gorgeous thing, and I think that's Sean's impact on the world. And what I love, and I always encourage people to step into their design. You know, he followed that passion, and sometimes I think we hold ourselves back, whether it's that we let someone early on in our life feed something to us that we then adopt as what people know as a limiting belief, right? We think that we can't, we shouldn't, who do we think we are? All of that stuff can play in. And I love that he just at some point said, "I'm going to go for this. I'm passionate about this. I want to go in this direction. And he did all in with his path. And I think that that's something that a lot of people maybe need a little help getting over. And sometimes someone like him just will set that tone by just creating what he's creating. And I think that's the most important thing, is that I see Sean leading a life where his light, stepping into who he is supposed to be, is actually leading other people to find that same thing for them, and maybe even join together in unity and do something amazing, like, use less plastic, help us to make those beautiful oceans a little more healthy for the biodiverse species that are in there right now. So there are things that we can do, even though it seems like it's a huge problem. And I think that Sean is one of those leaders, even if he says it's from behind.
That's my wonderful partner, Sandra D. Robinson. Once again, I'm Rich Bontrager. Make sure you subscribe to All In Magazine. Check out our next interview. But there's also the print copy that includes the digital interview. There's much, much more in there. Check it out. Subscribe. Come back next month and see us again live for All In Magazine. We'll see you then.